extinct means gone forever. At least, that's what everyone thought. Because right now, scientists are attempting something that was considered impossible for all of human history. Bringing extinct animals back to life, not in science fiction, not in a movie, in real laboratories. One species has already been brought back from extinction. Another could exist again within the next decade. And the final project on this list has a public deadline of 2028. But there's something the headlines rarely mention. Most of these animals aren't being cloned. They're being rebuilt, gene by gene. And whether that's enough to truly bring a species back is a question nobody can answer yet. Let's start with the only animal in history that has already done the impossible. Number 6. The Pyrenean ibex. In January 2000, the last Pyrenean ibex on Earth died. Her name was Celia. A falling tree crushed her in northern Spain, ending a species that had survived for thousands of years. That should have been the end of the story. But just before Celia died, scientists took a small skin sample and froze it in liquid nitrogen at -196 degrees Celsius. For 3 years, nothing happened. Then researchers decided to attempt something no one had ever done before. They removed the DNA from a goat egg, inserted Celia's cells, applied an electrical pulse, and waited. The embryo began to grow. Months later, a baby Pyrenean ibex was born. For 7 minutes, extinction was reversed. Then she died. One of her lungs had developed incorrectly. The world's first de-extinct animal survived for only a few minutes before disappearing forever. Once again, the species became the only known animal in history to go extinct twice. But despite the failure, something extraordinary had happened. Scientists had proven that extinction wasn't necessarily permanent. The animal died. The idea didn't. And what happened next was even more ambitious. Because cloning one animal is difficult, rebuilding an entire species is something else entirely. Number 5. The Thylacine. The Thylacine looked like a strange mix between a wolf, a dog, and a tiger. It was the largest marsupial predator of modern times. And in 1936, it vanished. The last known Thylacine died alone in a zoo after being accidentally locked outside its shelter during a cold night. For decades, that seemed like the end. Today, it might be the beginning. Scientists have reconstructed the Thylacine genome using DNA recovered from preserved museum specimens. One of the most important came from a head preserved in ethanol for more than a century. The DNA was fragmented, damaged, incomplete, but modern computing allowed researchers to piece together enough of the genetic blueprint to begin rebuilding it. Now comes the difficult part. Scientists aren't creating a thylacine from scratch. Instead, they're starting with a tiny marsupial called a dunnart. The dunnart is one of the thylacine's closest living relatives. Researchers are editing its DNA, one section at a time, replacing dunnart instructions with thylacine instructions. So far, hundreds of genetic edits have already been completed. Thousands more still remain. And if everything works, scientists believe a living thylacine could exist within the next decade. Think about that. For the first time since the Great Depression, a predator humans completely erased could walk the earth again. And somehow, the next animal might be even harder to bring back. Because unlike the thylacine, this species left behind almost nothing. Number 4. The dodo. The dodo lasted millions of years. Humans needed less than a century to wipe it out. When sailors arrived on Mauritius, they brought rats, pigs, and other invasive animals with them. The dodo never had a chance. By the late 1600s, it was gone. And over time, the dodo became something bigger than a bird. It became a symbol, the symbol of extinction itself. Now, scientists are trying to reverse that symbol. The dodo's closest living relative is the Nicobar pigeon. Using advanced gene editing technology, researchers are modifying pigeon cells to carry key dodo traits. The goal isn't to clone a dodo, that's impossible. There is no complete dodo DNA left to clone. Instead, scientists are attempting something much stranger. They're trying to build a dodo-like bird using the genetic foundation of a living species. Recently, researchers achieved a breakthrough many people missed. They successfully grew primordial germ cells from pigeons in a laboratory. These are the cells responsible for passing genetic traits to future generations. In simple terms, They found a way for their edits to become inheritable, and that's a huge step forward. But this project also exposes one of the biggest questions in modern biology. How many edits does it take before one species becomes another? Nobody knows. Because if a bird looks like a dodo, behaves like a dodo, and fills the same ecological role as a dodo, then what exactly is it? Scientists don't agree on the answer. And before that question can be settled, another project has to solve an even bigger problem, a problem so absurd that no living animal on Earth could help fix it. Number 3. The moa. The moa wasn't just large, it was enormous. Some species stood nearly 9 feet tall and weighed over 500 pounds for centuries. These giant birds dominated New Zealand. Then humans arrived. Within roughly 200 years, every moa was gone. And unlike the animals we've discussed so far, the moa presents a problem that sounds almost ridiculous. Not the DNA, not the genetics. The egg, a moa egg, was enormous, far larger than anything produced by modern birds. And that's a serious problem, because even if scientists successfully recreate a moa embryo, what exactly would hatch it? There is no living bird large enough to serve as a surrogate. No natural solution exists. For years, that obstacle stopped the project before it could even begin. Then researchers came up with an alternative. Instead of finding a mother, they built one. Scientists developed artificial incubation systems designed to replicate the conditions normally provided by a living animal: temperature, humidity, gas exchange, everything. And in 2026, the system successfully hatched healthy birds from start to finish, not moa, but proof that the technology works. Today, researchers have already mapped the moa genome. They've identified the tinamou as the closest living relative, and the project has attracted support from both scientists and Maori communities connected to the moa's history. The hardest engineering challenge may already be solved. Now all they need is the animal itself. But while the moa remains a future possibility, the next species is already alive. At least depending on how you define alive. Number 2. The dire wolf. For over 12,000 years, the dire wolf existed only in fossils, a massive predator that once ruled Ice Age North America, larger than modern wolves, more heavily built, perfectly adapted for a world that no longer exists. Then, something unexpected happened. Scientists announced they had brought it back. The announcement spread across the internet. Many people assumed researchers had somehow cloned a dire wolf. That's not what happened. The real story is arguably even more impressive. Ancient DNA degrades over time. After thousands of years, most of the genetic information is gone forever. So scientists approached the problem differently. Instead of recreating the entire genome, they identified key genetic differences between dire wolves and gray wolves. Then they edited those differences directly into living gray wolf cells. The result: 3 living animals, Romulus, Remus, and a female named Khaleesi. They're alive right now, living on a protected preserve, and they represent something that has never existed before. But here's where things get complicated. These animals aren't true dire wolves, not biologically, not genetically. Only a tiny fraction of the differences between the two species have actually been recreated. Even scientists involved in the project describe them as genetically modified gray wolves. And yet, when you look at them, they resemble something pulled straight from the Ice Age, which raises an uncomfortable question. If an animal walks like a dire wolf, looks like a dire wolf, and behaves like a dire wolf, how different does its DNA need to be before we stop calling it one? Because that exact question becomes impossible to ignore when we reach the final animal on this list. The animal many scientists believe could become the first true symbol of de-extinction. Number 1. The woolly mammoth. If there's one species that represents the entire de-extinction movement, it's the woolly mammoth. Not because it's the easiest project, because it's probably the hardest. For thousands of years, mammoths dominated some of the coldest environments on Earth. Then they disappeared. The last isolated populations survived until roughly 4,000 years ago, long after the pyramids had already been built, and now scientists are trying to bring them back. The strategy begins with the Asian elephant. Genetically, it's the mammoth's closest living relative. The two species share roughly 99.6% of their DNA. Researchers are identifying the genetic traits that allowed mammoths to survive extreme cold, thick fur, extra fat storage, cold-resistant blood, smaller ears that lose less heat. Then they're editing those traits into elephant cells. This isn't theory anymore. Scientists have already sequenced dozens of mammoth genomes. They've tested mammoth-related traits in living animals, and they're developing artificial womb technology designed to avoid using endangered elephants as surrogates. But here's the part that makes this project different from everything else. They've given themselves a deadline, a public one, 2028. That means less than 2 years remain before one of the boldest promises in modern science either succeeds or fails. Right now, there is no mammoth calf, no mammoth embryo, no mammoth pregnancy. What exists is a massive scientific effort involving dozens of researchers, millions of dollars, and years of development. And if they succeed, the world could see its first mammoth-like animal in over 4 millennia, not in a museum, not in a fossil bed, alive, walking, breathing, existing in the modern world. And that's what makes all of this so fascinating, because every project on this list forces us to confront the same question. What exactly is extinction? For centuries, extinction meant permanent loss, a one-way door. Once a species disappeared, it was gone forever. Today, that assumption is being challenged. The technology already exists. The animals are already being built, and whether we call them mammoths, dire wolves, dodos, or something entirely new, one thing is certain: for the first time in human history, extinction no longer looks quite as permanent as it once did.